Alright, so someone asked me how to build stairs in SketchUp. And so I'm going to we're going to start kind of at a basic level and then we'll go a little bit more in depth. So we'll get rid of this guy right here. Now, a lot of what we've been talking about in class has been sort of 8-foot ceilings, right? So oops. I'm going to just get a space modeled here, 10 foot, 10 foot. Okay. So a lot of what we've been talking about is kind of, you've got an 8-foot ceiling. Did I just go? I went completely the wrong way. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we've got an 8-foot ceiling here. And so I'm just going to do there we go. Let's just go all the way across. So we've got this space right here, and then we've got a floor above this, right? So when I talk about a floor above, it's not, when you have stairs that go up to the next level, it's not like this is the ceiling you see, and then just on the other side of that is the floor people are walking on. So this image right here should kind of illustrate what's going on. Below here, and actually even below probably this point, is where you would have your ceiling for your ground floor. And then this up here would be the start of your second floor, right? So if you're looking at sort of a space like this, again, here's your joists that are for your second floor. There's the stairs. Actually, this looks like ground floor and basement, but I mean, the same idea is this is where your ceiling would go across here, and then this is the floor, and you've got space in between those areas. So my shorthand whenever I'm working with you guys is to tell you, okay, you've got 8-foot floors, so go ahead and just call this space 2 feet, okay? So we'll make that 2 feet thick, and then it looks like my ceiling, or my wall right here just decided to change. And then again, we would have sort of another floor on top of this, right? Oops, missed that a little bit. Let's try that again. Okay. So what you've got is, and then obviously up here you would have a roof going on as well. Why did that copy? That's such a weird way for that to copy. So anyway, but yeah, so you'd have your roof above this. This would be your second floor. This would be your first floor. So if I'm trying to connect these two floors, what I need to know is what the height is from here to here, not here to here, because this is just telling me how I get to the ceiling, but it's going to keep going up. And again, I use 2 foot as a generic number. You can get thinner, but it gets more expensive as you get thinner. If it gets certain amount of thinness, you start looking at needing to switch to metal instead of wood. And it depends on the width of the space, and there's all kinds of engineering calculations that get into it, which are not really our problem, at least not for now. So again, my rule of thumb is just call it 2 feet thick, and that's generally fine. You should never run into any issue where it's going to be a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these right here. I'm going to run this out another 10 feet because stairs take a lot of length. All right, so what I'm going to do to figure out my stairs is I'm actually going to just draw them here in SketchUp. And the rule of thumb that we have for stairs is rise over run. We kind of talked about rise over run with the roofs. But with stairs, we're going to be doing 7-11, right? That's our that's the generic go-to that I use for a lot of things, is they cannot be more than 7 inches rise in each step, and they have to be at least 11 inches in run. So you don't want your stairs to be, say, 8 inches tall because it's too high for some people to step, and you don't want them to be under 11 inches long because people might miss the step. So we're going to go ahead and just do a generic 7-11 right now, and that's going to give us this little two-piece thing right here. So what I'm going to do to actually just determine how high my stairs is I'm going to do another move copy, and then I'm just going to do X22 or something, and we'll just see where that goes. And so that gets us all the way up here, right? So now we're past that point. We have actually extra steps that we're using. So what I'm going to do, and usually you'll never, because it's, you're using a bunch of weird odd numbers, typically this isn't going to line up. So what you have to do is take the next one above, right? I can't have these go more than 7 inches on this rise. So instead I'm going to have to take this step down. So what I'll do is I'll just get rid of these bits right here, and then, oh no. Okay, I gotta go back. Cut that, group that, and then now we can, oops, paste in place, and then we'll do another move copy, X, let's do 19, yeah. Okay, so this right here is what we're going to be going for. So now I can take this, and this is the only time I will ever tell you to do this in my class. Use the scale tool. Scale this down, and see how it's like squiggly 0.95? So it's just going kind of on vibes right there, but you're going to end up with the height that you want, right? So that's the easiest, fastest way I've ever found to do stairs in SketchUp. Now, that just gives us this right here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to actually want to come back now if we want to make these usable stairs, and we'll give them some width. So in this case, 3 foot is kind of a generic good width for stairs. Obviously, if you're doing sort of a more public area, you're going to want to have more stairs than that, or more width than the stairs, but 3 foot is kind of like a good minimum. So let's try 17x right here. Yeah, so it looks like about 17x was the lucky number here. So again, we'll take this, triple click, and then we can scale this down, match with that floor up there, and then we're good to go. Now, you can see that this creates a couple issues. I made this space very long and it's still not fitting, and we also need at least 3 feet at the bottom of the stairs here for someone to get through here. So if I move these stairs so that they're up against this wall right here, one of the other things we need to, so not only do we need to cut a hole in this floor so that people can get up the stairs that we've just created, we also need to make sure that there's space here for them to not bonk their heads as they're coming up. So the easiest way to do that is to just find where the stairs start, and then we can push-pull this through, and we've got an easy to use or easy to access staircase right there, right? Alternatively, if we did have extra space and we could do something like that where there's just no floor and maybe there's a whole wall that goes up between the two floors right here, right? Another option that we have is, let me undo that. So you've got, this is just a straight flight of stairs, right? Sometimes you're going to end up with landings. So what you can do is you can take this and let's just copy that way. So sometimes you're going to have to throw in a landing there. And so what you'll want to do is you want to kind of figure out where you want the landing to be. Usually it's about midway. And if you're feeling lucky, you can try and do this. And just kind of rotate that around. And then come back with another rectangle here. And just let that work, right? So that gets kind of, if you need to put a corner in, if you need to go something even more than a corner, again, you kind of start getting off into very individualized solutions at that point, but I can still take this and loop this around. Now, you would want to add a little bit more space in here because the thing we haven't quite mentioned yet, or I haven't quite mentioned yet, is railings, and you'd want to have a railing between these two flights. So again, it's going to kind of get off into the weeds where I can show you guys how to build sort of the, you know, the framing that's going to go around this. So I've got this flight of stairs that's going up straight, and then we'll bring this out 1, we'll bring this up 4, oh sorry, no, 8, 7, 6, yeah, 7, no, what's going on? I'm trying to find just a good length. Let's do 7 inches. No, let's do 8. Okay. So we've got that coming up 8 inches, and so then again we need to figure out what the slope is that we're going to use here. So we can use, you know, kind of whatever we've got going on here. In this case, we can draw a line that's going to connect those. And then if we just move this line over, we can snap it to that point. And then typically we wouldn't have this go much past the top, so we'd just bring this over, cut that off, and then we'd want another one of these parallel down here, and we'll call this 8 inches. Actually, let's do 9 inches. And then draw that face there, and then we'll just, again, overdraw this. And we're just using different lines here to kind of set things up. So then that would give us something we could use to generate a thickness here. So maybe that's 4 inches thick. Alternatively, if you want, you could probably offset this in a little bit. So if this was to be, say, 1/2 inch offset, and then just redo some of these curves to go, to go down like that. And then kind of depending on where your ceiling is too, that becomes another consideration in this. So if my ceiling's right here, it's possible that I don't frame this in the same way. I'd actually probably just terminate it when it gets to the ceiling here. Which again, you know, getting into the weeds, it's really going to come down to, you know, how you want your project to look. Turn K off. So, so here we've got this little lip that then I can use to, actually let's do it both ways. So we'll copy this across first, and then we'll use this side to pull out 1/2 inch, and then we'll use this to pull out 1/2 inch on this side. So that if this was, say, like a hand-painted baluster, I think. What am I doing? Just triple click it. All right. So let's get. So let's say this was all painted white, off-white, and then our walls were this blue. So then you'd have, you know, a railing here that would match your floors. These would be a carpet, or at least I'm going to make them a carpet so that we can visually see what's going on here. Do we not have carpet? Ground. Okay, well, we're doing this, and then there. That's carpet enough for me. So that way you could set up stairs where you have sort of a railing on the side, and then, excuse me, or sorry, you could have that going on. If you wanted to, say, lift this up, you could also take this section. This is going to kind of screw with the thing I just did. But if this was, say, higher, you could just have this come up, say, 2 or 3 feet. You'd have to come in and again edit this part, come across here, or I guess across here, to have that run into the ceiling. But that's one way that you would be able to sort of extend these up. Oh, that didn't like it. So you could extend this up, but I'm thinking specifically of a railing-based system here. Don't quote me on this part because I don't recall the code for some of this off the top of my head. But there's a certain gap, I think it's 5 or 6 inches, that you can't have space between railings. and that's to prevent little kids from sticking their heads inside and getting stuck or crawling through entirely. So we'll go ahead and make this up here. I'm just kind of setting this up. So let's say we've got this right here. Nope. And then we could pull this up. I'm only going to pull it up 2 feet because I'm actually going to bring it back over this way. Make sure it's vertical right there. And then, again, once I've got this, delete those. Okay, so I've got this, and I'm just going to tell it, all right, use this angle right here. We're going to go, what I made about 2 inches thick, so if we do every 7 inches, we'll probably be fine. And then we'll just do X 15 or 16 or, yeah, 16. All right, call it 22, X 23. And so that way you can put together a railing. And then again, if I wanted to have a physical railing on top of this, I could do anywhere from, or anything from, I could take kind of a face right here. So I could model something like a, let me group this first so we don't work on top of ourselves here. So maybe we've got a railing that comes up from here. Let's do right there. Comes out. And then I'm going to have to figure out where that exactly meets up. Okay. So this is just a temp line that I'm going to use. Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure everything's centered here. So then we'll just move this across until it matches with that, and then we can erase these extra bits. And then from here we would create, again, a push-pull face. For the sake of brevity, I'm just going to do this very quickly. But if you wanted to make something like, you know, with a couple curves on it or something, you could easily come in here and, oh, come on, use another tool to kind of cut recesses in here, throw an arc on the top. You know, just get creative with some of your tools here before you're doing this. And then just to make sure this works, we'll move this up so it's touching a line. Also, you'd want to look into, you know, if you're going to be doing something like this, curving some of these corners like this. So anytime I'm going to have it transition, I would have it do like a soft curve like that. And that's just more for aesthetics than anything else. You don't need to do that. It should work fine either way. So we could take this, follow me, and then bring it up, and that's how I would create a railing like that. Again, you'll have to trim this when it runs into the ceiling. So if we were to get rid of these, what are these in? Okay. So if we were to take this, move it back over here. What are you doing? Okay. Move this back over here. You can see that we have a space where this runs into the ceiling here. And this might be a spot where you as the designer have to decide how this transition is handled. Again, maybe you end your ceiling along this spot right here. So something like this becomes where your ceiling breaks. And then you'd want to pull this through. Where's that point? There we go. you know, keep bringing it across, and then from here, cut it. And let's see if I did. Oh, because it's not on the group. Cut it, paste in place, and now we've got this that can come up here. And again, you can see that I've still got this railing here, but once you get to kind of this point, this is where you'd want to switch to having it attached to the wall. But then you'd also want to have it continue. Oh, missed this spot too. You'd also want to have it continue functioning as a railing through that transition. Your wall side, you know, again, it's a little bit simpler if you attach it to the wall. And then once you get into the, you know, dealing with one of these kind of staircases, that's when you kind of get into a modeling nightmare. It can be done. It's just going to take time. You can also do other things with the stairs too. Like I did these as just straight flat faces. This is a little bit harder to pull off once you've already modeled all the stuff that I just did on these. But if you have one of them going like this, then you can kind of add a face here for steps and push this back. Do 0.5. So this is easier to model before you actually, you know, if I was doing that, I should have done it here. So if I'm doing my 7-11, then this is the point where I would try and decide what the actual face of the stairs looked like. So then this is where I would choose to do, again, I would make sure I use this corner here. And this is where I would choose to have that rise over run function differently. It looks like I'd have to pull this out another 1/2 inch to accommodate for that offset. And, oh, right. Let's throw a temp line right there. Bring it back 0.5, and then bring that up. Was it a full inch off? Okay. Okay, so this is where we would actually functionally do a decorative face, and then again here we do our X17. And then obviously if you're doing even more with this, if you're putting a pantry space, for example, under the stairs, you'd want to do something where you would have this wall capped off, even if it's just modeling a face in here. You can come in and do that and make it part of that area. So there's a couple different steps you can do that, but it kind of depends on, again, what your stairs look like, how they're modeled, what the kind of pattern is that you want to use. But it all kind of starts with this very basic step of figuring out what the face of your stairs look like, what's your rise and run, and then how many steps you're going to need to get up to the next floor, and then just scale that down. And that's basically how I would get started with that. So I hope that helped you guys. And then, yeah, let's get this posted, and I'll see you guys in class.